Coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studio, this is Talking Politics, and I am the professor, Fernando Uribe. I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. There's a lot to discuss, so let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Now, folks, here's a local story that should resonate with all of us, and for many of us that have decided to take to social media in recent months to voice our displeasure about policies enacted by either Governor Phil Murphy or Governor Andrew Cuomo as it pertains to COVID-19, this is one that should really kind of, boil your blood a little bit, because I know it sure does for me. Now, this past week in Staten Island, apparently sheriff's deputies in New York City are taking extraordinary measures in an ongoing battle with the owners of a Staten Island bar who moved in Tuesday night to shut it down and ultimately arrest the general manager. Now, the Mac Public House, which is an iconic local tavern on Lincoln Avenue in Staten Island, had its windows plastered with signs calling it an autonomous zone. If you remember that famous phrase from the summer when members of Antifa and far-left groups in cities like Seattle and Portland decided to make areas of those cities autonomous zones. And ironically, the liberal mayors and governors in those states did very little to deter the violence and sort of the outright deterioration of the cities when creating autonomous zones. But of course, not New York. When it comes to Andrew Cuomo and Bill de Blasio, yes, anything that involves regular Americans standing up for themselves, well, yes, we have to vilify them. While Antifa and Black Lives Matter protesters and looters or whatever, they get a free pass. But let me not digress here. Let me just unpack a little bit of the information to at least have an idea of why you should be outraged at this. So crowds shouted at the deputies as they led the restaurant's general manager away. Now, mind you, folks, this is not a member of organized crime. This is not a member of MS-13 or a street gang or any member of organized crime. It literally, as you saw in the video that's gone viral on social media, you saw exactly 7 sheriff's officers taking away the general manager, as if this guy is the most dangerous person walking. But again, Danny Presti, the general manager, was let out in handcuffs after repeated warnings to stop serving customers indoors. Now, again, let me just give you a little bit more information here. His attorney on Wednesday morning, Louis Gerlamino, told Eyewitness News, ABC7 out of New York City, that the charges included disorderly conduct along with civil fines. Now, his attorney wanted to say, quote, "I can assure everybody there wasn't a person in the place that was disorderly, disrespectful, or not courteous. Executive orders or emergency powers are supposed to be short-lived and narrowly tailored." Now, owner Keith McCarney said he took the actions he did because of the businesses would not survive in the area, and of course they wouldn't survive another shutdown. Now, the Mac Public House is located in Grant City, a COVID hotspot according to Bill de Blasio and Andrew Cuomo. And with hospitalizations somewhat going up, the governor in New York State decided to order indoor dining suspended throughout the Empire State. Now McInerney is encouraging other businesses and their owners to follow his lead. He went on to say, quote, through his attorney, "We are just trying to make a living and feed our families. We jumped through every hoop, did whatever they did, but at some point, you can't just keep shutting everyone down." He says business owners are suffering and desperate, especially when nearby establishments are in different zones. Now, folks, let me be very clear about this. If you've watched the video the last few days, you've seen tens of thousands of people literally taking to the streets near the Mac Public House. You've seen iconic figures here in New Jersey, such as Ian Smith from the Belmar Gym, all the way down in South Jersey, to other activists coming to the defense of the Mac Public House. And folks, and this is where I think regular New Jerseyans, New Yorkers, and just Americans are fed up with this. Because all throughout the summer, right, didn't we see here in New Jersey and other parts of the country when it came to protests and demonstrations, right? Because remember, they were peaceful protests. As it pertained to Black Lives Matter or other social activism, well, you know what, despite any destruction and looting and outright just, desecrating of property that took place, well, you know what, here in New Jersey, or especially in New York City, Mayor de Blasio and Governor Andrew Cuomo didn't lift a finger. While police were being assaulted by regular everyday people, yep, you know what, that's okay. But the minute that a business owner is terrified that, he's going to go hungry, or his family or his employees or nearby business owners are going to go hungry, guess what? yeah, they're going to be vilified. They'll be crucified by those in power. And I think that's where many of us are just not sitting right with a lot of these executive orders and these executive powers by either Governor Phil Murphy or Governor Andrew Cuomo. Folks, let me be very clear about something, okay? Listen, we all want to be safe. We want to make sure that we minimize the impact of COVID-19 because it really has devastated us in 2020, whether it be here in New Jersey, whether it be in New York State, whether it be across the country. I get it, okay? Thousands upon thousands of people have died. We have to be careful. We have to be judicious. We have to engage in responsible social distancing, wear our masks, clean our hands as often as possible. So I don't want to minimize that. But the problem is that it's become politicized. It's enabled those in power, such as Governor Phil Murphy, Governor Andrew Cuomo, even Mayor Bill de Blasio in New York City, to take it to the next level. And what's it doing? It's shutting down businesses. But during the summer, when people want to take to the streets to protest about George Floyd, who again, folks, let me be very clear about something. It's very tragic what happened to George Floyd. Okay? It was absolutely reprehensible what police officers did to George Floyd, okay, and to other people of color in recent years. I'm not here to minimize that. I'm not here to take away from the validity of the message. But you know what the problem is? It's become radicalized. The same thing with, for example, taking to the streets and protesting for Breonna Taylor. Listen, what happened to Breonna Taylor in Louisville, Kentucky was tragic. The officers should have acted in a much more responsible and in a safer manner. Now, of course, what people don't want to talk about when it comes to Breonna Taylor is, yes, those measures got her killed, but ultimately, folks, let's be honest, her taste in men got her killed. Nobody wants to say that because it's not cool, it's not proper. No, I'm not here to be proper, folks. I'm here to tell you the truth and tell you things you need to hear. And sometimes hearing the truth isn't always popular. Sometimes hearing the truth isn't always comfortable. Sometimes hearing the truth isn't always something that's easy to process. But that's what I'm here to do. But when we see people taking to the streets and not seeing consequences for it, and in some instances, protesting, looting, sending up traffic, inconveniencing people, you know what? That's where a lot of us don't like the entire matter. But when we see a business owner, like the owner of Mac Public House, again, an iconic tavern in Staten Island, standing up for himself, standing up for other business owners, you know what? I applaud that. I call that guy a patriot. Now, Governor Phil Murphy, Governor Andrew Cuomo, and Mayor Bill de Blasio will call him something else. But anyone who's rational, anyone who at least understands that a lot of these measures have become indeed draconian because business owners need to survive. Now listen, if you want to stay home, I'm not going to denigrate you. But if people want to be outside and people want to be responsible, people want to open their businesses, they should be allowed to. They shouldn't be prosecuted, they shouldn't be crucified, they shouldn't be vilified, and that's what we're seeing right now. Again, folks, I don't want to make this political because a virus shouldn't be political. But if the virus concerns you that much, stay home. Don't go out to eat. Don't do other measures. Order, in, whatever. But for those of us that want to be outside and want to live without fear, let them. Folks, live and let live. Isn't that what America's all about? Well, again, it seems to be that Governor Phil Murphy, Governor Andrew Cuomo, and Mayor Bill de Blasio must have missed that memo. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. In this week's edition of the 4-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, which you can listen to live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m., by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson, was the chief prosecutor of Hudson County's largest city, Jake Hudnut. We talked for over an hour on a variety of different topics, and here are some highlights for your consideration. First and foremost, we talked about how elated he was with the results on Election Day by an overwhelming margin of 67% to 33% of New Jerseyans telling the legislature, specifically the state Senate and state Assembly, and Governor Phil Murphy, along with the Attorney General of New Jersey, Uribe, that marijuana needs to be legalized, and we need to sort of iron out the details as soon as possible. Let's hear what he had to say about it.
Because I've had you on before, and I've been a big proponent of this, and I really want to get your thoughts on it because obviously now there's a lot of pressure on Trenton. You know, after Election Day, we saw that New Jerseyans, by an overwhelming margin, and I've been talking about this for weeks now, on not just the show, my Insider NJ podcast, and my other shows that I have, New Jerseyans overwhelmingly, by a margin of 67% to 33%, told the legislature, and ultimately, Attorney General Uribe and Governor Phil Murphy, that New Jersey now would become the 13th state in the country to legalize marijuana recreationally for anyone over 21. I'm ecstatic about it. Not because I smoke it, I never have. I don't care. But we've talked about this on the air before, man. Before working in academia, I worked in our criminal justice system for 10 years. So I firsthand saw it with my own eyes, going to county jails in Kearney for Hudson and in Newark for Essex when I worked in different agencies. I saw what these ridiculous marijuana laws did to black and brown people. Okay, and I don't want to sound like one of these, woke people that I always like to make fun of sometimes on my show, but that's a personal issue for me because I've seen people's lives ruined, whether it's my students because I teach in higher education, or friends of mine that are in my age group or a little bit younger or whatever. I just have seen, man, that marijuana laws have just been so antiquated in New Jersey, and now on Election Day, New Jerseyans told Trenton, get this right because we're tired of our black and brown mothers and fathers and uncles and aunts and sisters and brothers, whatever, are being put in jail unnecessarily. How did that make you feel seeing that result on Election Day?
It made me feel good. It made me feel the mayor and I both vindicated because, as you know, we pushed this issue forward in the summer of 2018, one of my first acts as prosecutor. But I don't know that it was a surprise because the public support was there back then, and this just confirmed it one more time. I also think that when this governor ran, he ran very aggressively on this issue. He did win with a comfortable margin. I also thought that sent a message in the fall of 2017. So I felt good. I mean, if you want to ask me how I feel today, a month and change or a little short of a month later, I probably feel less good. But yeah, the day after Election Day, I felt like the mayor and I had been on the right side of this 2.5 years ago.
Secondly, we discussed the apprehension that not only I feel, but I'm sure he does too, as well as many others throughout New Jersey, about the legislature getting a deal done on paper as it pertains to taxation and regulation, as it pertains to the legalization now of recreational marijuana for anyone over the age of 21. Now, folks, I've talked about this repeatedly. I don't trust Trenton as far as I can throw him when it comes to spending. Because whenever a new revenue stream comes in, yes, they love new revenues, but do they ever spend it responsibly? Chances are that they won't. And that's something that really worries me. And I know that the chief prosecutor shared the sentiment, and we discussed that at length during the podcast. Let's hear what he had to say about it.
And now, again, to the best of my knowledge, Jake, I think the legislature has until December 31st to get this right. Otherwise, it seems like January 1st comes, and if nothing's put on paper and signed by the governor, it could become the Wild Wild West in New Jersey.
Yeah, you have.
Is that a pretty good timeline? Is that pretty good explanation?
It is. And what's interesting about this ballot initiative, which you pointed out, this almost seems to be like a game of ping pong. They sent it to the voters, but then they wrote it in such a way that it passed the voters, then it went back to the legislature. To my knowledge, I don't think any other state that did it by ballot initiative did it that way. And whether it's politics or law, New Jersey likes to do things strangely. I mean, I'm sure you can think of a million examples. I can think of a million examples. For one, we're one of the only states that don't say misdemeanor and felony. We say crime and offense. Just goofy stuff. We tend to make things more complicated.
Sure.
And you're going to have a situation come January 1 where, it's not dramatic, but it is dramatic for the people it will affect, and it's certainly dramatic for a police officer on patrol to not have clarity, but you will have a constitutional crisis you'll have, I don't even know how to describe it without laughing, you'll have a constitutional amendment saying marijuana should be legalized and regulated, but you'll still have criminal codes on the book classifying it as either a misdemeanor or a felony, depending on the circumstances or the weight. And it's just one of those only in New Jersey type deals. And it is unfortunate because, the hardest thing for me since the summer of 2018, and a good result was we did the Attorney General to say, yes, prosecutors have discretion case by case, not as a blanket. Now, I disagree with that, but I respected where we landed. It was a negotiation. I do think Jersey City could have pushed it all the way, but we landed somewhere that we wanted to make a difference in Jersey City, and we actually ended up making a difference across the state. When I was a defense attorney for about 8 years before this job, and I would go to superior courts and municipal courts all over the state, south, north, east, west, routinely I would, and in much smaller courts than Jersey City, I would sit in a small court where a part-time municipal prosecutor, one night a week type court, would say, no, I can't downgrade marijuana. It has to be the disorderly person or misdemeanor conviction, and all the consequences that come with that, right? It can affect housing, it can affect educational assistance, it can affect employment, the ability to join the military or a police force someday. And I always was like, where is that written? And everyone would say, Attorney General Directive, Attorney General Directive. Well, when the mayor and I discussed me taking this job and I told him this is something I wanted to do, I did the research and found that there never was an Attorney General Directive. There was actually a footnote in the court rules that said prosecutors couldn't downgrade marijuana, but then later in that footnote it talked about how prosecutors have a duty to the greater interests of society. So to me, I almost thought it was an escape valve, and that's what we pushed. We pushed that, when that rule was written in the 90s, the public sentiment on marijuana was much different. And so the escape valve was society wants it now. So we can downgrade and dismiss. And we actually were more interested in downgrading. We didn't want to say, hey, marijuana is legal, smoke them if you got them. We wanted to just change it into a local ordinance disturbing a peace violation and say, do community service, maybe pay a fine, and we're not going to mess up your life and give you a criminal record. That was our goal.
It was a very informative episode, to say the very least, and you can listen to it in its entirety once again by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/A Talk in the Hudson. You can download the episode and listen to it from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. Certainly want to thank Jake Hudnut, Jersey City's chief prosecutor, for his time. And these are the exclusives I'll continue to bring you throughout 2020 and well into 2021. Now, here's some local stories for your consideration. Let's start off in the Mile Square City, where tragically, the Hoboken Police Department had to bury one of their own this past week. Now, a shout out to John Hines with the Hudson County View for his report on this story. Now, the city of Hoboken will be flying flags at half-staff for the rest of the week after the sudden passing of Police Sergeant Peter Zanin, according to Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bala, as announced via his office. Quote, it is with deep sadness that I announced the passing of Hoboken Police Sergeant Peter Zanin at 4 a.m. this past week at the St. Clair's Hospital in Denville, according to Police Chief Kenneth Ferrante, and it was available via social media. He leaves behind his wife Samantha, 3 young children, his mother Irene, his brother Kevin, and his brother-in-law Ryan. Now, about an hour later, the mayor's office put out a statement saying that he knew Zanin well and praised not only his service, but the way that he conducted himself in everyday life. On behalf of the city of Hoboken, I send my deepest condolences to the Zanin family and the entire Hoboken Police Department for the tragic loss of Sergeant Peter Zanin. I'm fortunate for having the privilege of getting to know Sergeant Zanin, the mayor went on to say. He was not a man of pretense, but rather a man who exhibited quiet grace and humility. He was a kind human and a gentle soul. Sergeant Zanin wore his uniform proudly and served our community with honor. His loss is a tremendous loss for the city. May his soul rest in peace. Well, folks, on behalf of everyone here at Talking Politics, I certainly want to extend my condolences to the Zanin family, certainly his brother Kevin, who I know very well, and the rest of his family. We all know that the sergeant was an upstanding member of the community, and more importantly, a very cordial and very professional police officer for the Hoboken Police Department. It's a tragedy when we see officers like this die way too soon. And once again, my condolences go out to his family, and certainly I commend him for his years of service, and I'm sure that the Hoboken Police Department will not be the same without the service and the way it was so dignified and so reputable by Sergeant Zanin. Again, our heart goes out to him, and certainly may he rest in peace. And now to Union City, where I'm proud to announce I'll continue to partner with the Union City Local PBA number 8, as we did during October for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which, by the way, was very successful, folks, in raising over $3,000 to defeat breast cancer. But now in December, as we all know, it's the holiday season. And even during COVID-19, children need toys. And without question, the holidays may not be very good for many of us, but let's do our part to help make it as memorable as we possibly can. So I'm proud to announce that the Union City PBA Local 8 is indeed hosting a virtual toy drive throughout the month of December. Now, toys can be dropped off at the Union City Police Department headquarters at any time, which is located at 3715 Palisade Avenue in North Hudson in Union City. Now, they'll be doing so until December the 19th of this year. Now, certainly, folks, because of COVID-19, it's been very difficult to have a traditional toy drive, but that hasn't stopped the Union City PBA Local 8 from doing so. Now, I know these brave men and women personally, and I'm proud to work with them as I did in October, and I'm proud to work with them now in December during this virtual toy drive. As I've said before, folks, I was very fortunate to grow up in a working class family where my parents worked hard, but they made it a point to make sure that during the Christmas holidays that yours truly, got the toys that he needed to make him happy during Christmas. And I'm sure for many children that are hoping that Santa leaves them something under the tree, let's all do our part and let's donate what we can. Once again, folks, toys can be donated at any time and dropped off at police headquarters at 3715 Palisade Avenue in Union City. No toy is big nor small, so please donate generously in whatever it is you can. And let's do our part to help make the upcoming holiday season as joyous and festive for all our local children. Trust me, with what they've been through, with virtual learning, because of COVID-19 and everything else, you know what? Our kids definitely need a break. Let's bring a smile to their face during the upcoming holiday season. Lastly, let's go back to Hoboken, where, yes, folks, as I've talked about it previously on this program, the local social justice clowns and the woke fools never seem to take a break. And certainly during a recent fundraiser for Hudson County freeholder Anthony Romano, it was no exception. Now, again, shout out to John Hines with the Hudson County View for his report on this story. Now, exactly 1 week after the Hudson County Board of Chosen Freeholders renewed their contract with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, otherwise known as ICE, freeholder Anthony Romano encountered protesters who were still angry about the vote during a fundraiser at the Malibu Diner. Now, they were chanting, of course, quote, "No justice, no peace. F these racist-ass police. No ICE, no cops, no KKK, no fascist USA," were a couple of the prominent chants that were heard outside the Malibu Diner in Hoboken, obviously on the north side. Now, around 25 to 30 people who clearly had nothing better to do with their time were steadfast on having their voices heard. Now, the outspoken group did indeed draw a response from the Hoboken Police Department and the Hudson County Sheriff's Office collectively, though no one attempted to create a conflict with law enforcement. Now, while Romano had planned a holiday-themed fundraiser weeks ago, the timing proved to be less than ideal due to the ICE contract that took place just 1 week prior, which lasted for over 10 hours if you watched it online via Zoom, due to a robust public portion where everyone spoke out against the deal. Now, Anthony Romano, who is a retired Hoboken police captain, was one of the 6 freeholders who voted in favor of the agreement, which has been on the books in some form since 1996 and may now run all the way through 2030. Now, speaking exclusively with the Hudson County View, the freeholder, who also represents about half of the Jersey City Heights, appeared surprised by the latest turn of events, but supported the right to protest as long as it remains, quote, orderly and respectful. Now, despite the controversy that erupted since last week, Romano was clear that he has no regrets over voting the way that he did. Quote, "The county and the freeholders, both branches, feel that we'd like to do the right thing for the detainees. Different members of the clergy, the legal profession, and families would like to keep all of the detainees here, so they're not transferred to somewhere else where they don't know where they are. The important thing is to understand that these detainees we have are from New York, and they've been sentenced or have committed very serious crimes." Now, folks, let me be very clear about this, because this is where, some of these organizations, like the Democratic Socialists of North Jersey, or other activist groups here in Hudson County, whether it be in Jersey City or in North Hudson, just absolutely aggravate me. Okay? Think practically for a second. Take your head out of your ass and think pragmatically. If we remove these people, okay, who have perhaps families nearby and their legal counsel nearby, you know what? What good does it do to transfer them somewhere out of state because you don't feel that Hudson County should have an ICE contract? Well, you know what, folks? that ICE contract does bring in revenue from the federal government. Now, numbers have fluctuated, and I can't give you an exact specific dollar amount, but they do come in. And those dollar amounts are beneficial to Hudson County. So if you negate the contract and decide not to renew it, well, what happens to that additional revenue coming from the federal government? You know what happens, brain surgeons? Your taxes are going to go up because that's the only recourse that the freeholder board is going to have. They'll have to raise your property taxes or raise a tax somewhere else. But as long as your heart's in the right place, it doesn't matter what impact it has on your pockets. This is what makes all of you people absolutely insufferable. You know who you are. The Hector Osegueras, right? The Roger Quesadas, and all these other leftist morons that go out and protest when they should be home, either working or if you're not working, looking for a job. That's what you should be focusing your energies on. Not harassing the freeholders during a fundraiser at the Malibu Diner or harassing the fundraisers during the public portion. There is no need for a public hearing to last 10 hours because you decide to be bitching and moaning like a bunch of little girls, maybe that got stood up at prom. Folks, it's what makes you insufferable. It's what just makes you aggravating to deal with. Now, you might say, Fernando, you're not being very tolerant. I don't need to be because I'm one of the most tolerant people that there are. But when I see this sort of stupidity being conveyed consistently by members of, leftist activist groups here in Hudson County, you know what? I'm tired of being patient. I'm tired of being tolerant. I'm tired of being, turning the other cheek and maybe taking the high road. No, you can't take the high road with these people because for whatever reason, these idiots don't seem to understand economics, and it's very simple. Now, again, if the humanitarian conditions at the Hudson County Jail in Kearney, New Jersey are up to par, that's what's the most important thing. Okay? Yes, some of them have committed very serious crimes, and I think those are the ones that should be deported immediately. No one's debating that. But for others who have not committed as serious as crimes and have legal counsel here and are trying to fight deportation, you know what? If they're near their families and their attorneys are nearby, let them be here. You know what? But again, when it comes to the social justice warriors and the woke people and all these other, bleeding heart liberals that here in Hudson County just absolutely just are insufferable, folks. And I could use another word, but again, this is a PG type format program. These are the people that, quite frankly, we can do without. And these are the people that we can do without when it comes to public hearings and everything else. All right? The ICE contract is renewed, okay? And let it be. Folks, again, when you're chanting awful chants like the way they were, I lose all respect for you. Grow up, folks. You're grown-ass men and women. Start acting like it. Stop having tantrums because you didn't get your way. But then again, that seems to be sort of like the blueprint for anyone that subscribes to any leftist ideologies lately in 2020. And that's our show for this week. To check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the Hudson Media Group, please go to their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com and www.livestream.com/HMGTV. Don't forget to like the Hudson Media Group on Facebook and follow them on Instagram and Twitter. And don't forget that live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m., you can listen to the 4-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson. These are the exclusives you won't hear anywhere else, and I can see you bringing them throughout the rest of the year and well into 2021. And never forget, ladies and gentlemen, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always talking politics right here with the Hudson Media Group. I'm Fernando Uribe. Thank you so much for watching.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.